Hey guys, welcome into the Shadow Box. I am Carlise, your host, your grief and trauma coach, and your shadow work guide. Today with us, I have Michelle Walter. Michelle is the CEO of Elevate and Empower Inc. She is a coach dedicated to helping those who are suffering loss. Michelle is also a two-time published author. Her first book called It Wasn't Love, and her second book is called Story of Love. Michelle is also a esthetician, and I love that extraness, right? Because that just gives a different pop to your personality. So I absolutely love it. So Michelle, go ahead and just give us a little bit more information about yourself.
Okay. Well, like you said, I am a wellness and grief coach. I have a psychology background and kind of pivoted to the grief and supporting those going through grief due to the loss of my own husband to COVID in 2021. And actually, yesterday was the 4-year mark of his passing.
Okay.
So that is what led me to want to support other women, other widows, other people really who are struggling to navigate the craziness and darkness of grief.
Right.
And because I am living, breathing proof that you can make it to the other side, I want to share that with others.
Yeah. And you come with two different facets there because not only are you a widow, but you are a widow come COVID. And that is a whole different era, you can say, that we were living in then. Give us a
Yeah.
little bit of information about how you came into the grieving world and what it was like coming in during COVID.
Well, my husband, first of all, a little background. He was diagnosed prior to COVID with a terminal lung disease. And we knew that there was a chance of him passing away within the following 6 to 8 years. So we were kind of preparing. After going through denial for a bit, we were preparing for that. Um, COVID-19 came around, 2021 came around, and the world shut down, and we both got sick with COVID. I don't know if I got it and gave it to him or if he got it and gave it to me, but we both got sick with it. The only reason I knew I was sick is because he was admitted to the hospital, he was brought to the ICU and tested. And because he was positive, I was sent to get tested as well. So January, February, March. So about 2.5 months. He was on a ventilator in the ICU. And March 4th, we had to say goodbye to him. And myself, my sister, my two grown sons, who call him stepdad, were all surrounding him when when the machines were turned off.
Okay. So they did at least allow you guys in the room during that time.
Oh yeah, I visited it. Once he was out of quarantine and we both didn't have COVID anymore, I visited every day. Even though he couldn't speak to me because he was on a vent, I was there every day.
Yeah. Yeah. What other stipulations did they have um, while he was in the hospital? Like, did they were they in regular contact with you regarding his updates and things of that nature, or was it? Did you feel like you were just left in the dark?
No, I think I felt like they went above and beyond, some of the nurses. One of the doctors there was a female, and I just her energy was awesome. And the nurses, when he first went on a ventilator, one of the nurses called me, video called me on WhatsApp from her own personal phone, just so that I could see what's going on. And she also put the phone by his ear because I believe that cognitively, he could probably still hear me. So
Yeah.
she put the phone by his ear and I had a little chat with him, and she didn't have to do that. So I feel like they went above and beyond in that hospital's ICU department for me, anyways.
Yeah, definitely. Tell us a little bit more. Your husband's now you're in Canada, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
about
So
40
you were
minutes northwest of Toronto.
okay. And so as we were experiencing it here in the US, you guys were also experiencing the same impact in Canada with COVID.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more about Brian is your husband's name. Tell
Yes.
us a little bit more about him and his illness.
Um, well, it was COVID that eventually took him,
Hmm.
um, because COVID attacks the lungs, and his lungs were already weakened from his terminal illness. Um, but he was diagnosed with this illness, and after going through denial, as we do with grief, um, we were preparing ourselves as a couple for when I had to live life and move on without him. So this was something that we kind of accepted and knew it was going to happen. We just didn't expect it to happen as early as it did because of COVID.
Right. Yeah. And that impact. So now we're moving into that you were kind of grieving him prior to him dying because you knew that it was coming. How
Yes.
did that impact you that he died sooner than later?
Well, it flipped my world upside down and it landed on its side, really.
Yeah.
That's the best way I could. The same way that he came into my life and changed the trajectory of it
Mhm.
is the same way his loss flipped the trajectory once again.
Got it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was devastating. It was devastating. It was heartbreaking. He was my soulmate, my anchor, and my protector, my sounding board, my biggest cheerleader. He was all of these things. So I lost all of those things when I lost this one person.
Yeah. And we'll dive into that a little later too, because that also speaks to that identity section of you, right? Your
Mhm.
identity was wrapped up, positively though, wrapped up in your spouse, and it gave you a different sense of self, a different sense of self that you didn't have when you came in and that you were searching for. And that's one of those things that having that, I don't know if you want to say perfect partner, but that one that you're supposed to be with, they come
Mhm.
and they kind of turn you inside out and show you the promises that you have within, right? And you started kind of living that dream of who you really
Absolutely.
were at your core.
Hmm.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So you said that you had two grown boys. They
I
have
do.
grown to call him stepdad.
Actually,
How
they called him, he was Italian and Irish background, so they actually called him White Dad.
oh,
That's what they
okay.
called him. Yeah, very lovingly, and he
Very
accepted it.
lovingly, and I know that he accepted it lovingly, right?
He accepted it, absolutely.
So, how did that impact them, even though that wasn't their biological father? Now, because one of your oldest baby, right? He is his father that passed away when he was younger,
Yes,
right? Okay.
yes. When
So
he was 6.
how did they kind of cope with stepdad, white dad passing away?
I think actually the younger one took it harder.
Okay.
The younger one took it harder. His father is still alive, but he had a special bond with his stepfather.
Got
And he
it.
would tell people that his relationship with Brian was closer than even his bio dad.
Got it.
So I think it hit him really, really, really hard, like almost as hard as it hit me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did you guys go to any support groups or how did you guys navigate that?
No, there was no support groups. We were in the middle of COVID. So we just supported each other. The family kind of rallied, right? We were all there to say goodbye to him and let him go. Then we all went back home to my place. And for the first little while, the family didn't leave me alone,
Mm.
um, at all for a minute,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because everybody wanted to come and make sure you were okay, and but that's one of those things with grief too, or when you have a loss. That's usually how it goes. Everyone is rallying around you. Everyone is there for you, calling you, bringing you food, doing everything, and then you get to a point where it starts to kind of dwindle down, and
Yes.
you have to sit with yourself or sit with your children and the reality is more so there because you don't have anywhere to go with it. You just have to
Yep.
sit with it. And I know that when we were speaking, you were talking about those secondary losses and how those secondary losses were they were hurtful as well, and you were kind of not expecting those. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. People think that when you lose a husband, for instance, that's the loss and that's the extent of it. You've lost that person. I've lost my spouse, and that's the extent of it. But secondary losses came along with it. Not only did I lose, like I said, my biggest cheerleader, my confidant, my soulmate, my anchor, um, there were people in my life who, let's say, trying to be very diplomatic when I say this, there are people in my life who decided that the ways in which I chose to grieve um, were not appropriate or conducive to them,
Mm,
didn't
okay.
make them comfortable,
Yeah.
let's say. And because of that, and because of me learning to set strong emotional boundaries for myself, I needed to protect my peace. I needed to protect my grief. I needed to protect my well being, my mindset, all of that. And so I set certain boundaries. And because of that, I've lost relationships. There's family members who I don't speak to right now because of it.
Yeah.
There are friendships that have been lost because of it. And yeah, it sucks. I don't, it's not fun. It really is awful. Um, but like I said, needed to protect myself and my grief and my peace.
Yeah. And another aspect that losing someone brings as well is you kind of figure out who's really on your side to stay, right?
Yes.
Where everyone's motives are. And nothing exposes a person's motive more than money, more
Yep.
than a person dying,
Yes.
you know, more than you needing them in some way, right? And
Hmm.
you can tell people that are not there because it's a reciprocal relationship. You know, usually when those things are exposed, it's more so you understand, like, oh, this has been one sided for a long time. You know, I've
Right.
been giving more than what I've been receiving, but because I used friend or because family, I thought that I was supposed to be connected to this person for a
Right.
lifetime,
Right.
right? That I was
Right.
obligated to this person.
Yeah.
And that's a hurtful feeling. At the same time, just as we know about grief, that exposes you to you, right? What is it about yourself that kind of had these friends around you, you know, or was giving more to the family members or not recognizing what their true motives were in the beginning, you
Right.
know? And so just I love how, like you said, your husband passing away changed the trajectory, but
Hmm.
also opened up that Pandora's box of who's really in my circle in an authentic way as to who I am at my core center,
You
right?
got it. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And were those friends and family that you had to let go? Would you say that you grieved that?
Um, some of them, yes. There's one particular relationship that I think I'm still grieving
Okay.
because this is a family member who we were very close at one
Okay.
time, inseparable close,
Okay.
right? And this family member, when Brian was on his deathbed, the day that we said goodbye to him before we turned the machines off and watched the life drain from him and say goodbye, this particular person said to him that, basically giving him permission to go. It's okay, you can go now because we got her. We will take care of her, meaning me,
Okay. Yeah.
right? So we got her. You don't have to worry about her. She's good. You can go in peace because we got her.
Yeah.
And this person said that directly to Brian
Yeah.
on his deathbed. And that person does not got me.
Yeah.
They do not got me. So,
Yeah.
that was very hurtful too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As close knit as you and Brian were, not only because he was your husband, but because you guys had a true friendship, you had a
Yes.
partnership, you had a teamship, you had a relationship, literally. And when he passed away, it's almost like you lost your best friend,
I did.
and or you did lose your best friend.
I did.
And so you have someone or others on the outside that's saying, hey, I got you, whatever you need, just let us know, and you'll never have to deal with this by yourself or what have you. So now you find yourself in a position where that's not the case. And now here you are kind of floating out in the world, in a vulnerable world, in a vulnerable way, in a scary world, and
Yes.
you're alone. How did you start to navigate that and pull yourself together to a safe place?
I hired a therapist. I hired a life coach, and I pulled my two adult sons in really close.
Got it.
At the time, neither one of them had children yet. They both now each have a son. But at the time, they didn't have children yet. And I'm mom and been single mom most of our lives. It's been us, the three musketeers. So I pulled them in. I leaned on them, literally leaned on
Right.
them. They're both big and taller than me. And I literally leaned on them to hold me up
Yeah.
in between therapy sessions and talking to my life coach and implementing things in my life. Like we spoke about, I meditate every morning. I journal every morning. I pull a tarot card every morning to guide me on my day,
Yeah.
um, to ask the universe what it wants me to know in
Yeah.
that particular day. So I drew from a lot of places, right? I
Yeah.
drew from a lot of resources, and together built, I guess, a little support squad for myself.
And it teaches you how to guide yourself. And
Yes,
it not only teaches you how to guide yourself, but also to follow the guidance, right? Because
yes,
you, like you said, you pulled from so many different sources, and you learn that a lot of what you need is on the inside of you, but you still need to utilize tools that's going to shed the light on those things that are inside of you.
absolutely. Yes, yeah,
And that
absolutely.
is exactly what you learned how to do. What would you say was one of the biggest or most impactful tools that your therapist gave you as you were going through the process?
Um, a thing called welcoming.
Mhm.
I share it with my clients as well. There's a saying, what we resist will persist. And so, welcoming is something that when the negative thoughts come in, the thoughts of grief, the thoughts of loss, whatever it is, it doesn't have
Mhm.
to be about grief. It could be you have a scarcity mindset, it could be anything.
Yeah.
When these negative thoughts and emotions come at you, instead of resisting them, which is what we do as humans, we want to resist what we don't want.
Right.
And when we're resisting what we don't want, what we're doing is shining a light on what we don't want. We're actually focusing on
Yeah.
what we don't want, instead of focusing on what we do want. So with welcoming, when these emotions and these feelings come, I simply do that. I welcome it. Okay, you're welcome here. Put my hands up. You're welcome here, type of thing. Because what I found is that the more that I practice welcoming, is the less impact these emotions and feelings and thoughts have on me
Hmm.
as time passes, right?
Yeah.
Like if I welcome a certain emotion today, next week that emotion will never hit me as hard as it did today
Right.
because I didn't resist it,
Yeah. I
right?
love that
Yeah,
because grief will chase you down,
it will. It'll
and
find you.
that is one of the scariest runs and the fastest runs that you can actually take, because especially when it's fear based, when you lose someone so close to you and you are trying to either outlive them or you're trying to beat life to everything that it has in store for you, because you don't want to miss anything. Like you're running from it, and you're
Yeah,
running from your emotions, you're running from the loss itself, as if it you want it to never exist. And so you are trying to outrun your entire experience, and you miss it all. And
Yeah.
so when you don't welcome it, as you say, it will eventually catch up with you and overshadow you. And
Hmm.
I really, really just admire that you kind of hit it head on,
Yeah.
because even though you went through the process of it, it was still like, I can't, if I run from this and if I don't deal with this, I know that I'm going to fold. I know
Well,
that.
I did try to run from it. So I
Mm,
learned from experience that you cannot run from your grief.
mm,
Maybe a week after my husband passed, I booked a flight to Vancouver, which is still Canada, but it's a 4-hour flight from
okay.
Toronto. So I booked a flight and I booked myself into the wonderful hotel right at the Pan Pacific. It's right in the bay. The cruise ship stopped there. It's really nice. I've been there once
Yeah.
before. And I think my stay was 5 days, 4 days, something like that. And I remember the first morning I woke up and I went to the restaurant downstairs and I decided I'm going to have some breakfast in the restaurant by myself. And I'm sitting there and I'm kind of keeping it together because I'm feeling like this is great. I'm in Vancouver. Nobody knows that I'm a widow here. Nobody
Yeah.
knows that Brian just died. Nobody's
Yeah.
going to come over to me and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss." Like, I'm not going to get any of that. And this
Right.
is why I ran away, right? I was trying to run away from all of that. I order my breakfast. I'm waiting for my breakfast, and over the loudspeaker, they're playing music. And what comes on? All of Me, John Legend.
Mm.
That is the song I walked down the sand to at our wedding.
Oh.
Yeah. So, needless to say, I fell apart. I fell apart right there by myself at the table. I was kind of facing a window, so, bawling. But by the time my food came, I had kind of gotten it together.
Yeah.
So, that was proof to me that even though you're in a city that nobody knows you, nobody knows
Mhm.
you're a widow, nobody knows you're grieving,
Yeah.
the grief is right there. It's like you put it in your suitcase and
Yeah.
unpacked it when you got there because
Right.
it
But
came
come
right there with
on.
you. Yep,
Right. Come
exactly.
along with me,
Yep.
and it's because it's inside of you, and you can't run from you. And it doesn't have anything to do, it doesn't have to have anything to do with grief. That just goes with traumatic experiences itself. If
Yes.
you don't deal with it, if you don't welcome it, and I'm just going to keep using that because I love it. If you don't welcome it, what
Yeah.
else? It's that's when it all has power.
Well, if you don't deal with it, it will deal with you.
Yeah. And you can't, it's hard for you when you allow it to chase you down for so long, and you allow it to hover over you so long, you lose your power. You feel like you're losing your power, and it takes you a longer time to recover, and some people never do recover because the chase and the running gets to be a familiar feeling. And it's like, I know how to run, I know
Hmm.
how to pick my bags up and get on an airplane and go somewhere. I know how
Yeah.
to do that. Oh, okay, so you're here with me too. Oh, okay, let me go ahead and drown myself in a bottle. I
Mhm.
know how to run, but
Yeah.
it's like, it's going to be there, it's going to be there. And
Yeah.
it's just, it's a never ending story until
Cannot
you
run
deal
from
with
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cannot run
And
from
so
it.
you find yourself there. And was that a turning point from you, or did you continue to try to run some more?
No, actually, that was the light bulb moment for me that you can't run from it.
Yeah.
So you're going to grieve here for the 4 or 5 days that you're here, and you're just going to do whatever you want to do. Mostly I slept. I didn't really do much. I went
Yeah.
to the spa. I went to the restaurant. I mostly slept. The time difference is about 3 hours or something like that from
Okay.
here. And maybe I walked the city a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't do much because really it was Michelle running away.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you have to sit in it. You
Yep.
know, you
Yep.
sat in it and you embraced it.
I did. I did. And I did have to sit in it because I'm 4-hour flight away from home. Whereas if I had booked myself into a Toronto hotel, two
Hmm.
days in, I would have driven home.
Yeah.
Because it was 2 days in, I realized that the grief is right here in the luggage with me. And so why spend the money? I might as well go home.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was the mentality. But because I was a 4-hour plane ride away from home, I
Yeah.
had to stick it out and, like you said, sit with it.
Yeah. And it's funny how things start to align as well, because that alignment said, I know that she's attempting to run, and this is still fresh. Like, you did a turnaround quick as far as facing it head on. But
Hmm.
it's like, I know that she's trying to run, so I'm going to get her 4 hours away from here. I'm going to get her by herself so that she can sit with herself, so that she can acknowledge what's going on and accept what's going on. And now
Hmm.
let's go ahead and start dealing with it. Let's start bringing this apart, because the distraction was at home. The distraction is people coming to you. You thought you were running away from it, but it was a distraction keeping you from accepting your grief,
Yep.
accepting your loss. Grief is a byproduct of loss, accepting your loss of how your life has dramatically changed.
Hmm.
And that's when you are a person who meditates, when you are a person who believes in energy, when you are a person who has your own spiritual journey and spiritual walk, that alignment that you try to run from, it's going to be there, because you've opened that portal up for yourself, and you can't run away from that. And so it's always going to pull you into the direction that you're supposed to be in for your own greater good. So you weren't running anywhere. You were running to it, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
So let's talk about how your identity kind of started to shift when your husband left.
Well, because we were partners, you very rarely would see one of us without the other.
I love that.
We were that couple, right?
Mhm.
So I mean, even driving his car for the first time, when he passed away, and I'm driving on roads that we used to drive together and stuff, that these things are hard. Going to places where we used to frequent together. Now I'm by myself. Um, it was a lot. Even months after the passing, because it was during COVID, I would go certain places and people would say, hey, how's Brian?
Mhm.
Having no idea what had happened, right?
Yeah,
Because it was COVID and it was so closed and whatever. So that was very hard. And realizing that now I'm in this world by myself, right? There's no longer the Mr. and Mrs. Green, the Greens. It's Michelle by herself.
yeah,
And it took a lot. It took a lot to the identity. It took a lot to kind of find myself
yeah.
and find my own voice and find my own path and that kind of thing. As far as losing him, like I said, we knew he was sick,
Mhm.
and even before COVID, he was hinting at not wanting me to be alone when he
Mhm.
does pass away.
Yeah.
And he even went so far as to try to get me to contact an ex-boyfriend and that kind of stuff. So he was very concerned about me being alone and
Right.
wanted to make sure, yeah, and wanted to make sure, I know this is him, and wanted to make sure that I wouldn't be alone and that I would be okay and that I would have companionship in my life once he wasn't there. So that was who he was.
Yeah.
And then also going into the hospital in January. So January, February, the beginning of March, I lived alone all those times because he's in the ICU on a
Mhm.
ventilator. So I'm getting up every morning by myself. I'm going to bed by myself. I'm cooking for myself. I'm worrying about myself. I'm doing laundry only for me. I lived a life for about 3 months, almost as if he wasn't around, because he wasn't around physically. He wasn't in the home physically. And I think that that gave me the opportunity to get used to being alone, or get used to being without him in the home. He was still alive, but he was not in the home.
Yeah.
And our last conversation that we had before he went on the ventilator, I had no idea that that was our last conversation and that he
Yeah.
would never come home after that.
Yeah. Yeah. When we think about your identity prior to your husband, and who you had gotten to know at a deeper level, as far as yourself, your higher self, your soul's purpose,
Mhm.
when you were with your husband, because he gave you that space in that room and that safety to really become. And now he's gone. He's gone. Did you find yourself, was it hard to stay that person that you've grown to become, or were you tempted to fall back into your own self, your own conditioned self?
No, it was very easy for me to. I'm still the person that I had become prior to and during our marriage. I'm still her. If anything, I'm more authentic. I'm somebody who, the old Michelle prior to Brian wouldn't stand up for herself. She would shrink herself for other people's comfort. I would dim my own light because other people, thought it was too bright. All of
Yeah,
these things. These are things that I don't do anymore. I will always speak up for myself. I will always be my authentic self. I will always show you, I will always show up. I show up for my clients, for my community. I might show up all made up with red lipstick, or I might show up in a bonnet, but I'm showing up.
yeah,
And so, no, I think I'm a better version of me, because one thing that, or some of the things that Brian taught me in our marriage was the things that I'm willing to tolerate um, in life from people in general, not just a
mhm,
husband, and my worth and what I'm worthy of, and what I deserve, and what that is everything, right? So I think that I'm a better version of me, having gone through this loss and come out on the other side. I know exactly who I am. I know what I want. I know what I don't want. And even when I was looking for a relationship that I'm now in, right?
mhm.
Um, I knew exactly what I wanted in a partner for this chapter of my life, and I knew
Mhm.
exactly what I did not want for a
Yeah,
partner. Yeah. So
yeah.
I
And it
think that,
tested you. You know,
yeah,
it tested you. That's one of those things where, yeah, okay, I've learned who to be. I've learned who I am. I've learned to love this version of myself. And now that I'm by myself, now that I really have to test the waters and stand firm on who I have grown to be, that's the true test. When husband is
yes,
not there to support you and cheerlead you, and you can go and face the world and have to deal with the world, and but you can come back home to husband knowing that he's there and he's gonna, boost you up a little bit again. When you don't have that, it's like, ugh, but you were able to stand in it, stand on it, and say, hey, this is me. This is
yeah,
who Michelle is now at a core's level, in my authentic self, and I shall not be moved,
no.
and that's a
And
beautiful thing.
I also did feel his energy, even though he had passed. There were certain things I was doing, certain projects I was working on, certain places I would go, certain thoughts I would have, and I felt his energy like right here, right? Either
Yeah,
cheering me on, or saying, you go for it, or saying, don't be sad. I want to see you smile. I want you to,
yeah,
go whip around in your sports car. I want you to be happy. And I could sometimes feel him like yelling
yeah,
that at me almost. I want you to be happy. Keep going, keep going. So I feel like
yeah,
he still was my cheerleader during that time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have kind of fast forward, like you said, you learned some things about yourself, relationships that you want and that you don't want, type of person that you want, that you don't want. So now we are in a new relationship.
Yes, we are.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, when I finally decided that I wanted to maybe dip my toe into the dating pool again, I joined a dating site, like a dating app, but it was one of those apps that were more, um, first of all, it was a paid app. So it wasn't something that it wasn't free. It wasn't one of those free kind of hookup kind of apps kind of thing. So you had to pay, and I purposely chose that because I figured if you don't have a credit card, I don't need you in my life, right?
Okay.
I figured it would weed out the riffraff, right?
Standards.
Yes, that's what I figured. So, anyways, I decided to join, and I joined, and I accidentally, sillily clicked the wrong button. And instead of signing up to pay monthly, I signed up for an entire year. Yeah, silly me. So I did that, signed up for an entire year, put my profile together. I made it clear on my profile that I'm not looking for any hookups, any one night stands. If you're looking for anything casual, do not click on my name,
Yeah.
right? And I made that clear in the profile. And about 3 days after setting up the profile, I saw Ken is his name. I saw his profile and I read it and I thought, he's kind of cute. We'll send him a little, what do they call them? Icebreakers or whatever. So,
Yeah.
anyways, we did that and I sent it to him. He responded. We talked on the app for a couple of days and then we decided to exchange phone numbers and have a phone call. And so we did that. And he was in Florida at the time because he winters in Florida, and has a seasonal business or two businesses, but one of them is seasonal here in Canada. So he was in Florida and I was in Canada. We talked on the phone and we hit it off right away. And we moved from phone calling to video calling. And that went on for 2 months because when we did meet, he was still in Florida for 2 months or something. I think we met
Mm.
in January and he didn't come back to Canada until April.
Okay.
So for this whole time, we're having video calls, phone calls, and this is how, and emails and texting, and this is how we're getting to know each other. And I think it forced us to really get to know each other because there was no
Mm.
physical. He's in
Yeah.
Florida, I'm in Canada, there's no physical. So it forced us to talk and get to know each other.
Yeah.
And he turned out to be a really awesome person. He was very sympathetic to what I was going through in my grief and my loss.
Mhm.
He made me feel very comfortable talking about Brian and our relationship, good and bad, and whatever. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Grief or happiness, happy memories, whatever. He didn't make me feel bad or guilty for bringing him up,
Yeah.
which was awesome. So he gave me the space to do that. He still gives me the space to do that.
Yeah.
Like I said, yesterday was the anniversary of the death, right? So he still gives me the space to do that. And February of 2024, Valentine's Day, he proposed. He left
Yay.
the rose and he gave me the rose, and I didn't realize that there was a ring tied to the rose, right? And
Okay.
that was that. And November the 13th of 2024, so this past November, we got
Mm.
married on the beach in Jamaica.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
How was, for one, congratulations.
thank you.
Congratulations on just even opening yourself up to new love, right?
Yeah,
And because that takes courage
it
for you
does.
to do that. And in more than one way, because is he going to, and it's not that you were expecting it, or any logical person wouldn't expect for their next spouse to be how their previous spouse was in this situation.
No, but you can sometimes get caught up in comparison.
Hmm.
And so I have to actively remind myself to not do that,
Yeah.
because Brian is Brian and Ken is Ken, and they are two different people. The
Yeah.
only thing they have in common is they're both November Scorpios.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
only thing they have in common, really. So um, you can get caught up in the comparison. But no, I feel like this is a different chapter in my life. And I feel like people come into your life for a reason, season, or a lifetime. And as my life goes on, it keeps being revealed to me some of the reasons why Brian came into my life for the
Yeah.
season that he was in it.
Yeah.
And it's still now, even today, certain things are being revealed to me. Oh, okay, that makes sense. That's why this had to happen. That's why I had to go through this crappy loss in order
Yeah.
to end up on the other side and be able to, like you say, open up to love again.
Yeah.
Um, be my authentic best self, all of these things, right? So they're two different people. And Ken is a very loving, very compassionate, generous man. And he's totally embraced me and my journey,
Yeah.
um, and our life together. So
Yeah. I
very happy
love
about
that. I
it. Yeah.
love it. So, what are some things that you would say that you had to kind of check within yourself as far as, okay, this was Brian and this is Ken. I can't handle these things the same way, or I remember what I learned over here with Brian, and so I need to make sure that I stand up for myself, or what have you over here with Ken.
It's
How?
both.
Give me an example of that.
It's both. It's both. There are many times when, well, in a relationship, you have to pick your battles.
Hmm.
So that's in any marriage, any relationship. But it's both, because there are certain lessons, let's say, that I've learned from my first marriage that I bring into my second marriage, like you said, and will assert myself and stand up for myself. Um, there's been, especially earlier in our relationship, there were just certain things that I'm not going to let it go, type of
Yeah.
thing, if you
Yeah.
know what I mean. I'm not going to put up with certain, like, gaslighting. I'm not going to put up with, um, if we can't communicate as adults, always implementing love and respect, right? Then there will be no conversation, kind of thing. So there are certain things, in this marriage that I'm in now, I've learned from the previous marriage,
Yeah.
and implement them over here. And then there are times when I have to say to myself, okay, Michelle, this is how you would have dealt with this with Brian. This is how it would have been dealt with Brian. This is
Mhm.
how Brian would have dealt with it. This is how you would have dealt with it. This is how you guys would have done it together. But Ken is Ken, and this is a different marriage. This is a different man. This is a different relationship. This is a different
Yeah.
home, all of that. So I have to take that into consideration and say, okay, well, maybe how I would have dealt with it with Brian in our home, in our marriage, in our relationship, cannot be the same way with Ken, because of all the reasons I just said. It's a different man, different relationship, different home. So different rules, right? And different strategies to handle certain things. So it's both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely makes sense. What would you say is one thing that your loss really exposed out of you?
Strength, resilience.
Okay.
Yeah. Those two
Yeah.
things. Yeah, strength and resilience. I'm not much is going to shock me right now. I think I've reached the point in my life that whatever this universe throws at me, I will be still for a minute and then deal with it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what it is. I don't have that type of that fear anymore.
Mhm.
Those what ifs, and that fear of the future, fear of what could happen. Um, Life is too short, and how quickly Brian was taken away from me, I realized that you can't live like that,
Yeah.
right? You have to just live your life, because tomorrow's not guaranteed. I could go to sleep tonight and not wake up tomorrow, right?
Right.
Or I could get in my car and be hit by a tractor trailer. Anything can happen, right?
Yeah.
Anything can happen. I could trip and fall, hit my head on the fireplace, and that's the end of me. Like,
Yeah.
anything can happen. And because of this, and because of my loss and going through what I went through, um, resilience, I think my resilience muscle is really big. And
Yeah.
I, I, I I can face anything that comes my way. I'm not saying that I won't grieve. I'm not saying that I won't be sad, angry, hurt, whatever emotions come along with it. But then I'll dust myself off and I'll get to work.
Now your birthday is in October?
Yep, I'm a Scorpio as well.
You're Scorpio as well, okay. So that is I was kind of figuring that. I was looking and figuring it, but you have that hit it head on fire because you have that Mars placement. And
Yes.
so that Mars placement is you prepare for war, and when you are at war, then you understand that you're going to win or you're going to lose, but most likely, you may win more than you lose, right? Some way
Hmm.
or another. But having that placement gives you that opportunity to look at it in a lens of I have to keep going. There's no stopping. There's no being able to waddle in it for too long. So your
No.
pain becomes your force. Your pain
Right.
becomes your power.
And I do give myself grace and patience. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, yesterday, like I said, was the anniversary of Brian's death. And even though I am not consumed by grief, there was a sad heaviness of energy throughout the
Yeah.
entire day.
Yeah.
So uh, I'm self aware enough to know that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
So I blocked the day. There was no work, there was no meetings. I had a bubble bath, lit
Yeah.
candles all around the tub, and I did self care for myself. I went and did my eyelashes. I watched a movie, the Bob Marley movie, which I've seen about 3 times, but I really
Mhm.
liked the movie, so I watched it again yesterday.
Okay.
Right? So basically, it was give yourself a break, Michelle, and do whatever the hell you want to do today.
Yeah.
Today's one of those days that if you don't want to get out of bed, don't. You don't want to clean your house, don't.
Yeah.
You don't want to work, you've blocked the day. Nobody can call you, nobody can book a call, you're done. So you do whatever you want to do. And I have those days every once in a while.
Yeah.
Um, and again, I don't fight them. I don't
Yeah.
resist them. I just say, okay, well, this is the day that it's going to be. I don't have any appointments. I don't have any work to do. I don't have any calls to do. Emails will be there tomorrow. And I'm just going to take this day for myself and do
Yeah.
what it is I want to do.
Yeah.
And
And
so
giving yourself permission is power.
yes, and that's what
You
I did yesterday,
know.
and I do it from time to time. So even though I do have that hit it on, hit it head on
Yeah.
attitude, and I got to keep going, got to keep moving, got to keep pushing. Um, I know when it's time to stop, and sometimes when I don't know when time it is to stop, my body will say, "Hey,
Oh yeah.
hello,
Yeah. It'll sit
hello,
you down.
yeah, yeah, you need
It'll
to
sit you down, definitely.
go sit down somewhere." Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
And that's, but that coming into yourself, that's where you start to have that balance. And when you start to trust your intuition, you start to trust the feelings that you're having, you start to trust the thoughts that you're having, whether they're whatever the thoughts are, whatever the feelings are, you know that it's when it's in opposition to the the productivity of your day, it's time to step back. Step back and let yourself just sit right there, because what else are you going to do?
Exactly.
People think that a lot of action is doing something, or continually staying busy, or continually, it's like, no, sometimes nothing is better.
Busy work doesn't always help, right? Sometimes
Right.
busy work can be a distraction from what's really ailing you.
Hmm.
But when it comes to grief, I don't think there's any amount of busy work that can take the grief away,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
I just don't think so. I mean, I'm not in the midst of my grief. However, I think of Brian every day. There's not one day that passes that he doesn't cross my mind. It's
Yeah.
usually during meditation because of the candle lighting and that
Yeah.
gesture. But there's not a day that I don't think about him. And I'm not in the middle of my grief. I have reached acceptance and I've moved on. However, he was a huge part of my life
Hmm.
and for 7 years. So you can't just forget that. You can't just
Yeah.
that doesn't just go away.
Never. And it's that aspect too of, when we lose someone, death is all, it's just going to happen. That's just a part of life. But people do come in your life for a reason, and it impacts you the way that it does for a reason, and it propels you if you do it. I would say if you do it right, if you really come into yourself and sit down and sit with it, it's going to show you a lot of things, and it's going to propel you into your purpose. It's going to propel you into your destiny.
Yes.
And that's almost kind of like what it did for you too. Not only did the trajectory change when you got with him, but also when he passed away, because now here you are, you're working in grief. You're working with people who are going to cross your path, that is dealing with the same emotion and feeling and the sense of loss that you had, and even in the way that you had it,
Hmm.
because everyone dies in different ways. Everyone deals with it in different ways, but the true essence of what we all deal with who have experienced loss is grief. We can all
Right.
speak the language of grief. We can
That's right.
say things to each other in the language of grief that another person would say to you, and you'd be like, I know you just didn't say that,
Hmm.
But when you experience grief, you talk that language. And so now you have a different language that you're speaking, and now you're propelled into your purpose of helping others.
That's right. Yep.
Would you say that, thinking back to what you're doing now, would you say that there was always an aspect of you that would have been servicing people in grief at one point in time?
No, not in grief in particular. Because of the psychology background, I was life coaching prior to COVID,
Oh,
but it was mostly women who wanted to start businesses. So and about mindset and money mindset. So this is where I would coach, trying to shift people's mindset around money and scarcity and that whole thing. So that's where my coaching started. And then I finished the psychology, and then we went into COVID, and then he passed away. So it was around then I started to kind of pivot um, with grief, because son is calling me. Let me send him to the answering machine. um, yeah, because with grief, because of joining like grief groups kind of thing, like online groups and stuff like that, and just the conversations that people were having in these groups. Um, it propelled me to join and to be a part of the conversation, because some people were saying good stuff, but there were some people who it was clear they didn't know anything about grief,
Yeah,
right? They were just speaking from I don't know if it was Google or what, but
yeah,
you could tell that they had no idea what they were talking about. So that kind of propelled me into sharing my voice and my
yeah.
experience with grief.
Definitely. And I love that you said that because often on social media, I see see some things pop up that's like, oh, if you want to become a grief coach or if you want to
Yeah,
become, get this grief certificate. And I'm like, it bothers me because I'm like, if you've never experienced it,
yeah,
then there's only so much depth that you can give it, right?
that's
And
right.
people need to, just like this platform, people need to hear the voices of those who have suffered, who have struggled, who's overcoming or in different spaces and levels of their grief,
That's
that's
right.
really understanding you to speak that language. But when you are just doing things for the sake of a fad, because a lot of people just, same thing with shadow working. People wanted to go
Mhm.
into shadow working. Everyone was shadow working. Everyone had trauma. Everyone, all these words that we throw out.
Right.
And it's like everyone wants to be a part of a movement, but haven't had the the gut wrenching experience of
Mhm.
the reality of it, right?
That's right.
So I love that. Hence the reason that, okay, again, it propelled you into your purpose.
Mhm.
And it's like, we know we have these people over here that are in people's ears, but you have the experience to really come and speak to them.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And I think that that is what has helped me to build my community, because I've been there and
Yeah.
I speak to women, widows especially, right to their core. I've been
Yeah.
there. I know what you're going through. It doesn't matter what stage of your grief you're in. I've been there. It doesn't matter if your loss was 2 weeks ago or 2 years ago or 10 years ago. I've been there. So
Yeah.
I've experienced it, and my goal is to help people navigate through it. So I think that that is what helps me to build an authentic audience,
Yeah.
because I've been there. It's like I use the analogy all the time that if I want to know what it is to drive a Ferrari,
Mhm.
I am not going to talk to my neighbor who drives a Toyota Corolla.
Yeah.
He has no idea.
Yeah.
Now, if I want to know about Corollas, sure, I'll go to my neighbor. But
Yeah.
if I want to know about Ferraris, it makes sense to go to the Ferrari dealership, or at least Lewis Hamilton from F1,
Yeah.
who's now going to drive for Formula One for Ferrari, right? So
Yeah.
that's the analogy. If I've never owned one, I can't tell you about it. I
Yeah.
can only tell you about what I've experienced and what I know and what I've been through. So
Yeah.
I think that's what helps my audience, my me to build an authentic audience.
Yeah. So now that we're talking about your audience, go ahead and fill us in on what it is that you do and how do you show up for your community?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm working on a community right now, like a paid membership type of community, but it's
Mhm.
not off the ground. I haven't launched it yet. But right now, I have something called the Renewal Method, which is a specific support program specifically for widows. And it's an 8-week program. It's online, and it comes along with workbook, journal, access to me, live coaching sessions, and also a group community session, so that these women can share their story and hear other story and know that they're not alone, and see that we as widows all go through the same stuff
Mm.
and we face the same challenges. So this is how I help. I also coach one-on-one. I'm also a counselor, so I've done some teen counseling, not to do with grief though, just teen counseling. I've done group counseling, family counseling, and life coaching one-on-one sessions like how we're having now. It's all online for me. I don't do anything in person, strictly online. I wanted to live a laptop lifestyle, as they say. So
That's the life.
that's right. I'm an online coach. As long as I've got Wi-Fi, then you've got me. So
Awesome.
that's what I do. And then you mentioned my books earlier. It Wasn't Luck is my first book, and really that's the story of Brian and I's. That's Brian and I's story, our love story, and my story of losing him to death. And at the end of the book, it even gives you a little teaser to Ken
Okay.
and that relationship at the end of the book. And I wrote that book as therapy for myself. It wasn't really to, sell a million copies, although that would be great. But really, it was therapy for me to write that down, to put it in black and white, and then to actually go through the process of, editing and getting the cover and getting it produced and getting it published to actually have the book come to my door. Right,
Mm.
like that whole process was therapy for me, and the book is also helped some of my clients, right? I mention it, and a lot of my clients have supported and purchased the book in whatever form, and have all said in some way, shape, or form that it's helped them. It's helped them to have hope. It's helped them to see that they could be resilient and they
Mm.
could be strong and that they could make it through grief, right? And it's helped them to um, see that you can grow from your grief and you can find purpose and you can
Mm.
find passion through it. And so that's really what I do. I'm very passionate about helping people go through grief. Again, I don't only coach people going through grief, but that is the main bread and butter, let's say,
Yeah.
um, to my business.
Yeah. Now tell us a little bit about your other book too, your second book.
Story of love. It's a
Mm-hmm.
journey of healing and personal growth. That is, it does go a little bit back into the story of Brian and I, but it's more focused on the new relationship I have with Ken,
Okay.
and story of love, and it focuses on love, self love first of all, but love in all its forms. But really, the main takeaway from the book is self love.
Yeah, I love it. So we touched a little bit about your spirituality. What is what is one mantra that really sticks with you that you kind of go in your day or just go in your life, even subconsciously with?
Well, I have this little thing that I do. I have reminders on my phone. So I think I have three of them set.
Okay.
First thing in the morning, my phone will bing and it will remind me that I am creative, I am resourceful, and I am whole.
Okay.
And that's my 7 a.m. reminder. And that's usually before my journaling and meditation.
Okay.
Then later on in the day, I think it's about 11 o'clock in the morning, another reminder or mantra that says, I am always connected to my source and my needs are met instantly.
Mm.
So that's another one of them. And sometimes I say that to myself. Sometimes I'm in
Yeah.
bed and I can't fall asleep and I'll just repeat it over and over, over and
Yeah.
over, right? Because I know that the what the food that I'm feeding my mind,
Yeah.
right? I have to be very intentional about that. So, if I find myself thinking about anything negative or just foolishness, really, like because you
Mm-hmm.
can't go to sleep or whatever, I try to say these over and over and over. And the third one that I have that comes up later on in the afternoon is I am always taken care of.
Yeah. I love
Simple
it.
and yeah, short and sweet. So these are things that I every day say to myself. I'm a firm believer that we are the creators of our life. We have to be very mindful of what we speak into our life. We have to be very mindful of what we think into our life. So I try to be very intentional. And these reminders just kind of, if I, get off track a little bit during the day, then
Right.
my phone will bing and right away bring me back to center, right?
Awesome.
Because I say
Yeah.
these things over and over. Yeah.
The way to use electronics, right?
That's right.
They come in handy. They
Why
definitely
not?
come in handy. What is one thing that you would like to leave with any widow, man or woman?
Um, that, what do I want to leave with the widow? That it won't always be so painful. The pain and the hurt will not always sting the way that it does today.
Yeah, awesome.
The grief will be, well, once you reach acceptance, the grief will be over, or the grieving process will be over. But as time, they say time heals, and I believe that to an extent, because as time goes, we evolve and we move on. But I guess the one thing I would want to say is to any grieving widow or widower out there is to honor yourself, be patient with yourself. The most important relationship that any one of us human beings have is the one we have with ourselves. So honor yourself, um, in your grief and during your grief and even after your grief. Honor yourself. Make yourself and your well being your number one priority, and the
Awesome.
rest will fall into place.
Awesome. Well, Michelle, tell us how to get in contact with you. Um, any websites and everything that she mentions, everyone will be in her bio, so you'll know exactly where to reach her. But just go ahead and tell us where we can get in contact with you.
Well, on Instagram, it's Michelle Walter Wellness, also on YouTube by the same name, and Facebook. And my website is michellegriefspecialist.com.
Awesome.
Yes,
Awesome. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for coming into the shadow box and just being vulnerable with us and being real with us and just coming in and shedding some light from your perspective
my
is
pleasure.
highly appreciated. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. If this even resonates and helps one person going through grief, then it was worth it.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Everyone, thank you for coming into the shadow box, sharing another special episode with us. And until next time, namaste.